Hey, what is up guys, JayTX here. This is going to be my League starter plans for Dawn of the Hunt 0.2, the upcoming PoE 2 expansion. I'll talk about the changes to Bleed and also the changes to our build with some of the new updates to both the gems, some of the ascendancies, and also the passive tree. I'll be providing PoBs for both the Ranger and Mercenary starting if you were wanting to go Bleed Bow for 0.2. If you were wanting to go Huntress, you'd follow the same starting PoB as the Ranger. And if you wanted to stick with Witch Hunter, then you just follow the Mercenary PoB. Please note that because the skill tree and a lot of the skill gems are not known yet, there will probably be a lot of changes to the build itself after we go live on day 1. I'll be sure to make an update video as soon as I can. I'll quickly show you my tier list for what I believe to be the strongest classes right now for Bleed Bow. I put Ranger into the S tier because you can ascend into a Deadeye. Deadeye just has a crazy amount of synergy with Frenzy stacking, and that's kind of what our build does towards the end game with using Spiral Volley and Barrage/Snipe. I put Deadeye into S tier because of the change to the Thrilling Chase Ascendancy notable. Previously in the first patch, there was a 50% chance that when you consume Frenzy charges, you would get double the effect. This got changed in 0.2 to a 100% chance, so it now reads when you consume Frenzy charges, you count as having consumed twice as many. This essentially means when you are consuming your Frenzy charges with either Spiral Volley or with Snipe Barrage, these Deadeye pretty much doubles the effect, which is ridiculous. If you have 6 Frenzies, it counts as you using 12 Frenzies. So if you Barrage normally with 6 or 7 arrows, suddenly doubles to 14 arrows. So it's pretty much an unbeatable Ascendancy node, as well as everything else on Deadeye, like Tailwind and just additional projectiles or additional projectile damage. It's ridiculously strong with the Bleed Bow archetype. Following it closely in A tier, I would put Mercenary Witch Hunter, so this is the classic build that I League started in 0.1. Witch Hunter did get some nice buffs this patch, especially with Sorcery Ward being a bit stronger than before, and as well as Concentration adding more damage. I don't know if these two changes affect us that much because we don't really specialize into those nodes. Potentially, we could grab those now and not take the Explode node because we have a new Herald of Blood skill gem. We've also put Amazon into the A tier. Right now, it seems like a very solid ascendancy choice, especially for the things that we want to do. It has a good balance of both offense and defense. If I were to go Amazon, I'd probably go with Predatory Instinct first, then Critical Strike, and then Penetrate. And then the last ascendancy node could either be in for the kill or potentially a defensive node like Stalking Panther. And then finally, in B tier, we have the Tactician and Ritualist. I can't really say much about these ascendancies because they're not in the game yet. We haven't actually had a chance to test it. I think they have potential as well as a Bleed Bow character. There are some pretty cool synergies you can do with the Tactician with the supporting fire that pretty much summons like a rain of arrows on command. The Ritualist has some cool effects as well with getting an additional ring slot and stacking ring and amulet effect. You might be able to do some cool things with amulets depending on if there's new unique amulets coming out this league. And also there's a potential for using Blood Boils. Personally, I think Blood Boils might be a bit of a bait/overrated skill, but obviously we don't know until we try it. There's been a bunch of brand new bleed gems released. These are the ones that have been found so far on PoEDB. You can have a look for yourself. But these are just the notable ones that I've picked out that could potentially be useful for our build. Things that I think that are really, really good would be alignment. So because we use Spiral Volley and it shoots in a 360-degree cone anyway, we could fully benefit from the effects of alignment because essentially they want you to face a direction while shooting. But that doesn't really affect us because we can shoot any direction and our arrows will go everywhere either way. And there's also some interesting effects with, for example, Hemocrystals. Potentially you can make enemies explode. You have Twofold, which is essentially the Deadeye Ascendancy, which allows you your charges to have double effect. You probably take this if you're not going a Deadeye. Now obviously the big one, Herald of Blood, massive skill for us. This is pretty much going to be mandatory and taken on every single bleed build, regardless if it's a bleed bow or bleed melee. It's like a ridiculously powerful skill for clearing. And then there are some other support gems that could also be pretty interesting for the build. Obviously, this will require a lot of testing before I can recommend anything, but I thought I'd just let you guys know these are some of the gems that have been released that could be pretty interesting with Bleed. But for existing gem changes, there have been some pretty extensive changes to some of the skills that we use. The main one being Combat Frenzy. It's now been reverted back to the previous cooldown. So previously, it was on a similar cooldown where it's 4.1 seconds to generate charges. It got a massive buff back in 0.1 all the way down to 1.58 seconds, so you would be generating charges constantly. So this change just means that we'll have to kind of revert back to our 2-skill setup, which is just having a bow shot to pin and set up your charges, and having a Spiral Volley to dump. This is how I played the build for a large majority of the early game back in 0.1. I already talked about this in one of my earlier videos with just using your basic bow attack to create the pin to generate frenzies, and then using your Spiral Volley to dump. Essentially, we're going to go back to that playstyle. It's not a massive deal. Spiral Volley got buffed, so now it's 30% more damage per frenzy charge, which is great, 10% more damage Normally we have 6 frenzy charges, so that's just 60% more damage on our spiral volley. That's a great buff. Then we have Barrage repeats now deal 50% less damage on all gem levels. Previously it was down to 15, and quality adds 0 to 15, but now 0 to 5. So this is a pretty big nerf to just the one-tap nature of Barrage Snipe. However, the cooldown has been reduced by a significant amount, so you will be able to use Barrage a lot more frequently in fights. Overall, I think this is a needed nerf. Barrage was a little bit too strong for Snipe already. You're just getting to the point where you're just one-tap bosses. I think you can still get to that level with enough investment, especially if you're playing a Deadeye and you have a lot of frenzy charges. This will still be a massive damage multiplier. You'll still be taking this in pretty much any Snipe build, but obviously it's been tuned down a little bit and the cooldown's been adjusted accordingly. I think obviously it's going to be a bit of a nerf to our front end damage, but having a higher uptime for Barrage during fights isn't a bad thing either. We'll have to kind of see how it plays out in the actual gameplay, but that's just something to be aware of. They've also mentioned there's going to be passive tree changes to the tree. There's going to be new bleed clusters near the ranger start, and also there's going to be a Crimson Assault Keystone passive. Before the current patch, getting Aggravate was kind of annoying, and getting it guaranteed was very, very hard. Crimson Assault gives you aggravated bleed, but makes your bleed duration from 4 down to 1 second. You can still increase the bleed duration, but it's going to be much harder than before because your base is now 1 second. Getting a guaranteed source of Aggravate is incredibly strong because it makes your bleed do double damage. It's something every single bleed build will need. Obviously, there's other ways of getting aggravated bleeds as well. This might be a really good source of getting aggravate bleed if you can't get it anywhere else on your tree, or if you can't get it on your gear. Potentially, I think the downside might be a little bit too high by making a duration 1 second. I think it could be really good for builds that hit really fast so that they keep reapplying bleeds. They won't care too much about the 1 second duration thing. For us, I think it might be good only in the early game, and then in the end game, you'll get other sources of aggravate, so you probably don't want this, because the idea is to only shoot one big bleed and let the enemy bleed out. And like I mentioned before, these are the changes to the ascendancies, just a couple buffs for the Witch Hunter, insane change for Deadeye. This just pretty much makes Deadeye insane, like the best choice for frenzy stacking. So jumping into the PoBs now, it's going to be one for both the Ranger and the Mercenary. Depending on which you want to start, it's going to have every single act and what ascendancy node you should be taking. The tree will still be very similar for the Amazon, I would imagine. The only difference is I don't know what's going to be changed on the tree. There might be certain bleed nodes. Please be aware that this tree will most likely change from day 2 to day 3 compared to before league start. We don't know what the tree's going to look like. I can imagine there's going to be a lot of... I can imagine we'd go for the bleed nodes earlier if it is available to us on the Ranger side. So this PoB will contain Act 1 all the way up to Act 6 for the leveling and where to spec your points if you're going a bleed bow on a Deadeye. Similarly, if you want to go Mercenary into a Witch Hunter, we have all the PoB notes here as well for the Mercenary side and Witch Hunter. This goes all the way into early maps and into endgame. Both PoBs will also include a note section that have all the skill gems and when to take it and when to swap certain skills. I'll be updating these PoBs as much as I can as the league progresses with all the new information we find out about potential gems, uniques, and the tree updates. So please note that these PoBs will most likely look a little bit different after day 1 and day 2. I think our build's done comparatively better than a lot of the other builds that have been hit with multiple nerfs after the patch notes that came out yesterday. Obviously, we've been nerfed a little bit with changes to Barrage and Combat Frenzy, but comparatively speaking, I think we came out a little bit better than other builds. I'm really excited for the upcoming Dawn of the Hunt 0.2 League. I hope you guys are as well. I'll be live streaming my league start at twitch.tv/JayTX right from the league start, so if you guys have any questions or if you guys want to follow along with the build, you can just catch me there. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching the videos and showing your support. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you guys have a great league start, and I will catch you in the next video.